I don't want to believe for a moment that my 2 kids could die by suicide. And so as a parent, I'm going to put it aside, make it somebody else's issue.
But you'll talk to them about sex and drugs and
risky
peer
behavior,
pressure, bullying, the internet, everything else. But this is not something that comes up. And this ties into the whole mental health stigma as well. And,
absolutely.
And you sent me an article yesterday that was in the Toronto Star that talks about how we don't have that dialogue with our kids, really.
The article is a great one because it's based off an RBC study talking about that looks at the conversations between parents and their kids on mental health and mental illness, and they're finding it's not there.
Yep.
What's interesting too, it also looks at where the greatest conversation dialogue takes place, and it's within peers. So looking at teaching kids as well as parents and those around them, like coaches and teachers, giving them tools to how to talk to their kids, but also giving kids the tools to talk to their peers and help their peers.
How do you broach that subject with your kids?
Well, it's very interesting. One of the things, probably one of the greatest myths that keeps people away from it is what we have to acknowledge first, that talking about it won't cause it. It's greatest fear that if I talk to my kids or my colleague about suicide, put the idea in their head and they'll go do it. No, it's a myth. It's not true.
Okay.
So talking about it will not cause it. So getting that out of the way first. And then creating tools. Like people will ask me about talking about suicide within our house, and they'll think we talk about it all the time. One of the things I've said is that it's like talking to our adolescents about sex or drugs. We don't wake up in the morning and have breakfast sex talk, lunch sex talk, dinner sex talk. No, we look at the opportunity to talk about it, knowing that we have to. We make sure our doors are open to talk about it, and when the opportunity is right, we sit down and talk about it.
So you don't sit down and go, okay, let's have a talk about this, and okay.
Well, if we would talk to our kids about sex that way, or alcohol or drugs,
some do.
Yes, some do.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that
Time
would
for
work.
the talk.
But realizing the talk has to take place.
And what are the resources like here in Thunder Bay for that? I mean, as far as getting information on it or getting even help?
First of all, in Thunder Bay, through the Youth Suicide Prevention Task Force, there's a website called here'sthedeal.ca.
Here'sthedeal.ca.
Here'sthedeal.ca. That will provide you a lot of tools and links and resources to how to talk to your kids, how to get training, create knowledge. And I would also suggest people coming to our links on the collateral damage website at leftbehindbysuicide.org.
Okay.
Send me an email. Ask.
Okay.
Ask your principal. Ask the social worker at school. What do I do? One of the things that I really strongly believe is that when the day comes that we can face suicide head on, will be the day that we start dealing with the issues that lead up to it. Because ultimately, suicide is not the issue. It's the issues that lead up to it. But we need to talk about suicide to talk about the issues that lead up to it.
And the thing, unlike, normal diseases, I mean, this is something that you can't see. This is a disease that's not worn on your sleeve. This is within, and some people don't show any signs of depression, and before you know it, you've lost a family member or friend, which, I've seen that happen many times.
It's an interesting one that people will often say that, and I agree with it. However, there's a lot of times, and I've been involved with many, many cases over the last couple of years, one just a couple months ago, that when we started looking at this young woman who was in trouble, who we did get to emerge and is much, much better today.
Good.
When we started talking about it and deal with the issues head on, family members and friends were saying, we noticed this 2 years ago. 9 times out of 10, when I have conversations with people about people in crisis, they'll bring up, we noticed this 2 years ago. That's when we ought to have been dealing with this, beginning to deal with it, not in this crisis. And I believe the more we talk about this, the more tools we have in place, that's what we'll start doing. We'll start preventing suicide without having any idea that we did. Why? Because we're not afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cool. That, when I look at the Collateral Damage Project, trying to find funding for this is next to impossible. In this country, there are no companies who have community-given policies that support suicide. You look at cancer and breast cancer, it's filled. There's hundreds across the country.
It's true that, I was reading lots of articles on this because there is more talk about this in the media. And some of it's your employer even, you're afraid that they're going to treat you differently because you may say, well, I have a mental health issue. It's like all of a sudden there's a blemish on you.
Yep. And I think, too, a lot of the workplace issues, we can start with workplace training. Most workplaces have first aid, CPR, WMIS, that it's hours long. Well, let's include Safe Talk. It's a 3-hour workshop to teach people the warning signs and resources. Mm-hmm. Make it a part of what we do in a workplace. Then it becomes not normalized, but a part of who we are. And then those workplace stigmas begin to go away, and we're not worried about it as much. That's it, is it? And we all have our struggles, but we often think they're ours. But when we open up just a little bit, we realize that they're all around us.
Yeah.
The greatest rate of suicide still falls within middle-aged men, and it continues to grow.
Oh, wow.
And when we look at that, you know, you got to get us guys talking. If I want to keep my son safe as adolescents, got to get the dads talking. That's one of the biggest hurdles. Get dads talking and then open it up. And
Excellent.
I think it certainly can be done. It is being done.
All right.
It's been done in Thunder Bay. And I can tell you that one of the big things, even looking at what's happening over the last couple of days and what are we going to do, I can tell you that on November 16th at St. Ignatius and St. Pat's, 100% of the staff are being trained in Safe Talk in
Great.
one day, in 3 hours.
Great.
And they've had this plan for a while. It wasn't a reaction to this. They were being progressive and doing something about it before it becomes an
Wow.
issue again. And that's the way to do it.
Well,
It's-
that's how we start. We start.
it's
by
like talking here. Do it before. Don't wait. Don't wait to do something. Why do we have to wait for that?
Yeah.
We haven't cured it.
Yep.
So
And
let's do something about it.
Which is why I want you to come back
Yeah.
and you know, stay with us on this and let
Yeah.
us know how the project is going. And
Well, our big plan right now is to have it all finished up to launch the book and exhibit in September of 2013.
okay.
It needs to get done. People need to see
Excellent.
the images. People need to, because that's where the power of the stories begin and the dialogue takes place.
All right. Here's the deal.ca is a local help that you can get.
Yep.
And we've put up the link on our Facebook. Scott, thank you for coming in this
Thank
morning.
you, Scott.
Always
Thanks.
a pleasure.
Always good.